To the World Championships in Orlando, Florida. For that story, let's go to Steve Armitage and Stephen King.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal. One of the favorites in the men's elite division will be Mark Bates of Kingston. Another of the ones to beat, Vancouver's Simon Cassidy. Also a top challenger, Nick Taylor, who likes the course.
I like the bike course. It's a little bumpy in places, but it's wide open most of the time. You can really get going and get some speed.
It wouldn't be a Canadian triathlon without the Puntos twins from Kelowna, Sylviane and Patricia. Kendall Morrison was a winner in Vancouver. Sylviane Puntos a winner in Whistler, and she'll be challenged here by Carol Montgomery.
My main goal is to be top 6 and make our Canadian national team to go to Orlando.
There's more than just a Canadian title at stake in Montreal, as Carol pointed out. Positions on the national team for the upcoming World Championships in Florida are also a top priority. Canada will send a team of 24, 12 seniors, and an equal number of juniors. But first, there's the challenge of Montreal. And first up will be a 1.5-kilometer swim in the Olympic Basin, followed by a 40K bike ride through Montreal, and winding up with a 10K run back to the basin. Already in the water and awaiting the horn to start, the elite men. Now, this kind of start usually avoids some of the problems we've seen in other triathlons, where it's a mad dash to the water. With ideal conditions today, we're expecting a time of around 17-18 minutes. Working with me today, as usual, the voice of Canadian triathlon, Steve King. Steve, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. And maybe what you've noticed out there already is none of the athletes are wearing wetsuits. You mentioned the water temperature, 77 degrees. Anything over 72 degrees, and by Tri-Fev rules and Triathlon Canada rules, they're not allowed to wear wetsuits. Some of the age groupers may, but our leaders going out include, obviously, the elite and the junior men and women. There are 6 waves going off today, I believe, at about a minute apart. Now, it's an out and back course, a V-shaped course, so easy for sighting out there for our leaders. And amongst our leaders should be some of Canada's top juniors. And they include people like David Smith, Eric Millamacki, Kevin Zarby, and Andrew McMartin. They're all out there near the lead pack at this time. But we can expect some of the others out front to include people like Dave Kirk, who's a phenomenal swimmer as well. Simon Cassidy, he's one to watch out for as well. But I expect the time, as you said, to be between 17 and 18 minutes. But we'll get an indicator when they come up to that halfway point. Second wave of age groupers now going out. Notice the different color caps they're wearing. That's to differentiate them as they go through. Some of them you'll see in the age groupers will be wearing wetsuits. They are allowed, but they won't be declared in the official results later on. There's a lot of prestige at stake for this race as well. There's money on the line between 1 and 7 for the elite, and there are 59-man slots available too.
When we return to the Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal, we'll have more of the swim.
Laura, could you come in here, please?
Michael, the Martinson account is driving me crazy.
We were just talking
They
about
say they
that.
don't see me enough, but I can't make that trip every week. Could you see them once a month?
Laura, this is Sandy from Bell.
Well, that would never satisfy them. They want regular contact. Have you thought about team selling? Yeah, I am the team. No, really. What if you had a partner here, a telephone specialist we could help train? They phone your clients once a week. You work as a team.
We should talk about that.
Makes sense.
Long-distance business sense. Getting close to your customers can give you the edge you need. Call us.
Hot one. Yeah, this is the one we got to run today.
Heat is not the worst punishment here. This test is.
Rock and roll, okay?
From drive to reverse, full throttle, over and over. This severe transmission testing improves Oldsmobile's quality. In fact, GM automatic transmissions are rated better built than most imports and all domestic manufacturers. With 77 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
Welcome back to the Canadian Triathlon Championships at the Olympic Basin in Montreal. And our leader right now is David Smith of Vernon, BC. He is leading the men's elite division.
Not surprisingly either. In fact, he has a very interesting history. He was born in Holland, raised in Newfoundland and England, and here he is today leading the national championships. He is the man who got the gold medal in the Commonwealth Games junior category. And not surprisingly, he's out there, but with him, interestingly enough, two other juniors. The man just coming through in fourth place, that is Dave Kirk, the 1986 Ironman Canada champion. We'll be able to spot him because he appears to be the only person without a swim cap on amongst the elite men there. So Dave Kirk certainly should be up amongst the top 5. Swimming is his forte. He's a strong biker, tends to lose a little bit on the run portion. With him also in that group, I think, is Mark Bates and Simon Cassidy. They should do very well in the swim too, and hopefully be able to maintain those positions throughout. One man who's going to be a little concerned today will be Frank Clark. He wants to make that Canadian team. He had a brilliant race last weekend at the Vancouver International when he came second to the world champion Mark Allen, but without the wetsuit, he can lose a little too much ground.
We should reinforce the fact that conditions here at the Olympic Basin, which, by the way, was used during the 1976 Olympics by the canoers and the rowers, absolutely ideal. Normally, in a triathlon, if you're swimming in an open body of water, like in a lake or a bay, you have to contend with tide, you have to contend with shock, but conditions here, because they are controlled, are absolutely perfect. And as we mentioned, water temperature 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
Indeed, great conditions, Steve. And also, the size here of the basin is phenomenal, and it's ideal because there's 6 waves that they have. One of the reasons, obviously, for the waves is to avoid drafting on the bike. But for these athletes, some will want to draft off each other, and it's perfectly legal, as you mentioned, in the swim course. But the other thing to watch out for is the sighting. The lead athletes will have no problem because of the buoys. However, because of the width here, they can move backwards and forwards because they want to lose the people who are on the back of their feet at this time.
David Smith is the leader as we move back to the women. The women are wearing the green caps. The men are wearing the orange. And, of course, you notice that some of the women are passing the men. That is not uncommon in triathlon. A lot of the women athletes are very competitive.
Yes, you have to remember the junior men went off with those elite men as well on that first wave. But some of the females out there are phenomenal swimmers. We have in the field Marie-Josée Cosette, who in fact I think is leading presently, and she is the #1 triathlete and swimmer. She's out of Gatineau, Quebec. So she is the province's #1 triathlete, and she really does have a good chance of making Canada's national team. Certainly that's what a lot of the athletes have come here for, these in the elite group. Wearing the distinctive colours of the BC team. That's a junior triathlete by the name of Laura Hill. Laura is out of Crescent Beach. Also up front there, it looks like Genevieve Carrell from Vancouver. And Gail Lawrence from La Honda, California has come up all the way for this. She's in fact been racing throughout Canada this year.
And there have been a number of triathlons in Canada throughout the course of the season. So certainly lots of competition for the athletes leading up to the Canadian Championships here and a possible berth on the Canadian team at the upcoming World Championships in Orlando, Florida.
And as we pan back a little there, Steve, we also see the distinctive style of Joanne Ritchie and Carol Montgomery. Now, and that is Dave Kirk. Now, Dave is still in 4th or 5th place at this time behind the juniors, but it's interesting as we saw the women there, top 5, not unexpectedly, including Joanne Ritchie, but pleasingly including Carol Montgomery. She too had a phenomenal race last weekend at Vancouver's International. She came out of the swim in 1st place, and swimming was always the worst of her 3 disciplines, so she was absolutely delighted about that. She came out of the water with Shannon Delaney, never been done before, and she maintained it but lost a little on the run to Kendall Morrison. We'll get back to the ladies because this lead group of the men here, they include people like Kevin Darby, I believe, is out in the lead juniors, but the others there's Mark Bates, Simon Cassidy amongst that group. I can't quite see who else is in there, but I would expect that Paolo Soldano is someone who doesn't want to lose too much ground either. Swimming was his worst discipline as well, and but he's been working hard towards that. Known as an ultra-distance triathlete, I expect him to be in the top 10 today. I would certainly hope so. He deserves it.
If swimming is not your strong suit in a triathlon, it is important to try and keep in touch with the leaders, not necessarily to win the swim portion, but to certainly be up there when you come out of the water. So there's not too much distance between you and the lead swimmer.
Indeed. And one man we have as a guest with us today is from Westchester, Pennsylvania, one of America's very best, known as the Beast from the East, Ken Glass. I expect him to be out there probably in the top 8 in the swim portion, and he should be a contender for the overall title, although obviously he's not vying for Canadian champion per se, because he will be going for a spot on the American team. Again, wearing the distinctive colours of the BC team. That is Dave Kirk, presently I think in 5th or 6th place. 2 others ahead of him. And that is Simon Cassie, in fact, who's ahead of him, as well as Mark Bates.
We're closing in now on the leading group of male elite swimmers, and the man in front is David Smith of Vernon, BC.
And behind him is Eric Milamaki, who's on the same team as him. That's the Trikinetics team out of Victoria. The third man appears to be Kevin Sarby from Gloucester. He's a very good swimmer, and in fact, he won his age group in Chicago last year, so he could do very well as well.
David Smith has had the lead from the very beginning of the swim portion of this Canadian Triathlon Championships, and he doesn't appear to be slowing down at all. He's going very, very well.
Indeed, and Eric Milamaki is starting to make a move there too, in 2nd place. He certainly should be able to hold that. He's a very strong swimmer. Somewhat gangly, but really has improved on his running, so I would expect him to get a position on the national junior team. Certainly after what he and Dave Smith, our present leader, did in the Commonwealth Games, we can expect that to happen today.
This is David Smith coming up to the buoy. He will make the turn here and head for home in this V-shaped swimming course in the Canadian Triathlon Championships. So when we return to Montreal, we'll have the finish of the swim.
In the morning, in the evening, ain't we got fun? You know, a Carnival cruise is more fun than anything. We have 8 fun ships, and we go to all the fun places. The Caribbean, Bahamas, Mexico. So for your next vacation, remember, sunny weather, all together, we've got fun.
Take a 3-, 4-, or 7-day vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Toronto goes for Canada's 3rd Olympics as the final countdown to Decision 96 is underway. The IOC is holding court in Tokyo, while anxious fans from 6 great cities look to the land of the rising sun and the awarding of sport's greatest honor, the right to host the Games. Toronto's proud Canadian contingent is pulling out all the stops. The 96 bid, the final days, coming up on Sports Weekend.
The horn here at the Olympic Basin in Montreal signifies the start of the age groupers in the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships. And Steve King, we do have an outstanding field of age groupers.
We certainly do. As I mentioned, Ken Glass is one of the guest triathletes. Also in the field today, the world's very best master, Mr. Bill Leach of California. And in fact, he went head-to-head last weekend in Vancouver with Canada's #1 master, John Sullivan of Vancouver. And John Sullivan came out a winner in that one. So here they are going at it again just 1 week later. However, the no wetsuit rule should, in fact, see Bill Leach with something of an advantage. Others to watch out for in the age groupers include Ian Hooley, Sig Kastner, and Marlies Torrance. There's another man in that elite men's field I want to mention, because he was one of Canada's very best and is coming back after a very serious bike accident, and that's Steve McMurdo, who's presently in about 25th position. Unfortunately, last year's champion, national champion Paul White, on the sidelines. He is here today to watch the event.
Well, as the age groupers make their way down the Olympic Basin, of course, the elite athletes who got a head start are coming back down towards the finish line to wind up this 1.5K swim. In perfect conditions here at the Olympic Basin. As we mentioned, water temperature 77 degrees. Now we're picking up on the battle for first in the women's division.
And that is Marie-Josée Cossette from Quebec. She is the leading female in that province. And with her, that appears to be Sharon Donnelly, who's closest to us, and Joanne Ritchie of Kelowna, who's in the middle there. Now, Joanne Ritchie, interesting story. Took 2 years away from the sport, gave birth to a second child, and has come back with a real bang. She was up at Whistler a few weeks ago. The BC race there is a phenomenal race, and she was leading it until the last 100 metres when Sylviane Pontus just tipped her by 2 seconds. But swimming and biking are a strong point, so three very fine swimmers out front. So Marie-Josée Cossette just hanging on there as we go to the men's category. And now leading men, first three are all in that junior category. Those are the under-20s. Now the times, it appears that it's going to be just over 20 minutes, so it does look like we've got a long course here somewhat. That could be up to maybe 200 metres longer than the 1.5 advertising distance. But it appears to be Dave Smith out front, Eric Millamacki second, and Kevin Zarby. So British Columbians 1 and 2 with Ontarian Kevin Zarby in third place. The times, again, just over 20 minutes, so it's going to be very close, just a matter of seconds between the top three. There's about a 30 to 40 second gap between that second pack of 6 triathletes. Leading that second pack appears to be Dave Kirk. There's Eric Millamacki, young man who got that bronze medal in the Commonwealth Games. Certainly he's in very fine form. He can hold it on the bike and run now. He's really learned a lot in the last couple of years.
Now they come out of the Olympic Basin and make their way into an area called the transition area. This gets you from the swim to the bike. It's an area where you don't want to lose any time. You want to get in and out as quickly as possible. And the good triathletes, the championship caliber competitor, gets into that area so quick and out just as quickly.
Indeed, they'll wear the swimsuits throughout the entire race. Used to be a time, as you know, when people were wearing specific tri-suits, but no longer. There's David Kirk coming out in 4th place overall, and Jacques Zedoin just behind him. But first down to the bike course, the youngster David Smith from Vernon, British Columbia. He is gold medalist from the Commonwealth Games Junior Triathlon. His past winner also in Vernon, his hometown.
So it's Smith in first place, Millamacki in second as we get our first women coming out of the water.
An interesting race there. Sharon Donnelly, I think, the first to exit. But with her, we have Genevieve Carrel, Laura Hill, Marie-Josée Cossette, and that is Joanne Ritchie. So the first 5, just seconds between them. So it'll be interesting to see who is first out on the bike course. You mentioned how quickly they now make the transitions. Let's take a look at some of the athletes in that transition area. Again, the women will keep on those swimsuits throughout the entire course. Every second counts on this. They have to run their bikes or walk them out to a specific line where they're allowed to mount them before heading out with 40 Ks of cycling ahead of them. That's a distance just under 25 miles.
And I think this is a great idea, walking the bike to the line, then you get on the bike and out onto the cycle course, simply because you could have so many accidents in that area because you're so anxious to get through as quickly as you can. But you see them walking it out from the line, then they get on the bike and begin the 40K ride.
And the first female triathlete on the bike going out there was Joanne Ritchie. So she made up a few seconds in that transition area. Again, a return to racing after almost a 2-year absence. We're really pleased to see her doing so well. And she wants to make that a national team to go to Orlando, Florida, and I think she can do it. Certainly her running is her weakness, but she's been improving on that. She's now capable of 37 minutes for a 10K. But back out onto the cycle course. Now, we've had some disturbing news at this point. I think that's Eric Millamacki we're seeing. Just a couple of Ks into the bike course, I understand Dave Smith has had a serious accident. Someone was coming at him, and they've had a head-to-head crash. Now, we hope to get further reports on that, but it's Eric Millamacki who's presently leading, I believe. Now, that's a disaster for David Smith. We hope to get an update. We've got some of the lead women going through there. Gail Lawrence is one of those from La Honda, California. Carol Montgomery also close to that lead pack coming out of the water.
You can see the beautiful skyline of Montreal behind the riders. They are making their way into Old Montreal, and of course that happens to be a most magnificent historic section of this old city.
I'm presently vying for second and third places, Steve. That is Gail Lawrence is just going by Carol Montgomery. I'm quite surprised to see that burst of speed there, but Gail is a very, very fine competitor. She came fifth in those BC championships, but Carol is the lady to watch out for today. She is presently ranked #1 in Canada. So they're vying for second and third place. Our present leader, Joanne Ritchie.
Carol Montgomery, a 24-year-old from North Vancouver. She's the defending champion in Montreal, but not the defending national champion.
Now that, of course, was Sylviane Pontouse, who's presently in about 7th position.
When we return to the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal, we'll have more of the cycling.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
I'm telling you, she's got a man. No. Then why the new clothes? Well, did you see her in that dress? Gorgeous. Yeah. She gave up smoking. She's exercising. She watches everything she eats. And she looks like $1 million. You're right. She's got a man. Mm-hmm.
The Special K breakfast. Only 230 calories and low in fat.
So who is it? Oh, probably some fabulous blonde guy.
Special K and a balanced diet. Because you've got your own reasons for looking good.
Welcome back to Sports Weekend Control. I'm Ron McLean. The final week of summer as we move into the fall season, championship season in many sports, and we're keeping you apprised here throughout the day of ongoing developments elsewhere in the world of sports. The pennant races are going on in Major League Baseball. Toronto Blue Jays in a big game this afternoon at Sky Dome against Baltimore. The Jays were leading 1-0 through 3 here in the top of the 5th inning. Billy Ripken homers off David Wells. This shot over the .328 marker in left field squares the affair at 1-1 as the younger of the playing Ripkens sends the ball out of the ballpark to tie it at 1. Later on in the same inning, it's Cal Ripken Jr. at the plate, and he's been slumping a bit in recent months, but he drills this drive straight over the left center field wall. His 18th dinger on the year. Cal Ripken Jr.'s homer follows Billy's, and Baltimore's lead is 2-1 against Toronto, and they've moved now to the top of the 7th in that game as the Jays continue to struggle with the Orioles in what has been a real tough series for Toronto. The Boston Red Sox, meantime, are at Chicago for Game 3 of a 10-game road swing. The Sox, Boston that is, leading Toronto by 3 games in the American League East, and they'll go this evening with Harris against Hibbert in that ball game. In the National League East, the race is between the Pirates and the Mets, but Montreal is not entirely out of it, 7.5 off the pace. The Expos have had Pittsburgh's number all season long. They're 11-5 against the Bucks. They won 4-2 last night, and it'll be Zane Smith against Nabholz in that affair at the Big O at 10-8 tonight. This afternoon's National League East game features the Mets at home to the Philadelphia Phillies. It's 3-1 in the bottom of the 6th. The Mets will host Montreal for a 3-game series beginning on Tuesday. In golf, Dave Barr is at 5 under par. He is 2 shots off the lead. Buddy Gardner and Nick Price share that distinction at Glen Abbey in the Canadian Open. Now, let's go back to Montreal and rejoin Steve Armitage and Stephen King.
You're looking at Eric Millimaki, who is leading the cycle portion of the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships here in Montreal. And this is the battle for 2nd and 3rd place. And the man who's just moved into 2nd place is Ken Glah.
And Ken Glah was the man who had that very exciting finish in New Zealand earlier this year in their Ironman. Just 1 second between he and Pauli Kuru of Finland. And unfortunately, Kenny Glah was the man who ended up in 2nd place. But Paolo Saldana doing very well out there. He is the fastest Canadian ever in the Hawaiian Ironman, has a time of 8 hours 51. So it's great to see him come back to the shorter distances. He's in fact a former ice hockey player and ski racer. But Kenny Glah out there looking ahead. He sees Eric Millimaki maybe, 150 to 200 meters ahead of him. And I would expect Ken to be able to reel Eric back. But Eric wants to hold on to a top position. Remember, he will get in that junior team if he can just place in the top 6 in the junior category. So I would probably think he can hold on to a top 15 overall placing. But Ken Glah about to assume the lead.
You heard that. He said, are there many more guys behind you there? So a conversation between our leader and Ken Glah.
So Ken Glah assumes the lead now, and I'm sure he's delighted to find out there's no one else ahead of him. He is, in fact, the reigning U.S. long-distance course champion. He did that at the Texas Hill cross-country triathlon last year. And remember, we've seen him in Vancouver a couple of times. Last year, a thrilling win for him, 2 seconds over Mike Pigg. So Ken Glah, the beast from the East, now leading the national championships. Eric Milamaki in second place and Paolo Saldana in third place. But to the women's race, presently in second place, we have Gail Lawrence, and in third place, the lady we've just passed there, that is Carol Montgomery from North Vancouver. She's about, what, 80 meters back at this time. But it is Joanne Ritchie, our present leader, who's quite a ways ahead on the bike course as they make a right-hand turn. Gail Lawrence from La Honda, California, being chased by Carol Montgomery. And I would expect Carol to be able to actually get back up there on the bike and maybe finish them within 1.5 to 2 minutes of Joanne Ritchie.
She's a much stronger bike rider and runner than she is a swimmer, although she's not a bad swimmer, but she certainly excels when it comes to the bike and the run.
Indeed, she was the second place overall in the Vancouver Sun Run, and there was, what, I think 11,000 athletes in that one. Phenomenal run, just over 33 minutes for the 10K distance.
Carol Montgomery, the 24-year-old from North Vancouver, going very well, looking very comfortable on the bike.
And we have to remember, Carol was 7th in the World Championships last year, and she's been going phenomenally this year. In fact, she won in a USGS race in San Jose, just destroyed the field there and surprised them. And she went to China earlier this year. It was wonderful to see her and Frank Clark, the 2 Canadians, asked to compete, and they both competed with distinction. Carol won the race from Shannon Delaney, and Frank Clark came second to Brad Bevan, the Australian. And now Carol Montgomery assuming that second place. Gail Lawrence just falling back slightly into third place. She'll be delighted if she can maintain that.
Carol using the stiff rear wheel, whereas Gail has the open spokes.
Well, that'll cut down a little on the wind resistance for Carol. It is an option they have. If you get some crosswinds, you could be in some trouble. We go back to the swim finish area. We have to remember, coming out now, we've got a lot of the age groupers, and the masters men and women that I spoke about earlier, they didn't get to start the swim until the actual leading juniors and elite men were coming out of the swim.
And a lot of these athletes, of course, are looking for a personal best time, which is very important in this kind of competition. When we return to the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships here in Montreal, we will have more of the cycle portion, and that is developing into quite a race in these championships.
Minus 20 bogey last night, that's cold.
The temperature is well below zero this morning. Perfect to test Chevy's heartbeat. With the electrical system fully taxed, Chevy delivers reliable cold starting. After thousands of tests, an incredible 99.9% success record. With 77 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
Nice to see you again, Har. So my wife gets fed up and says, plug the drafts, Tom. Well, I got hair. I don't cut drafts. So she called Hydro, and they sent over this book. Tells you how to find the drafts and plug them up.
I called Hydro, and they think we can save maybe 20% on our electricity bill.
Through special programs and incentives, Ontario Hydro is working to help companies and individuals all across Ontario become power savers, to save electricity for today and tomorrow. Be a power saver. Let's give tomorrow a hand.
Canadian households produce nearly 3 million tons of food waste a year. Waste trucked to overflowing landfills. That is why we urge you to dump your food waste in your own backyard. Into a new Rubbermaid green cone. Odorless, animal-resistant, it uses the sun's energy to digest food waste naturally. The new Rubbermaid green cone, available now at Canadian Tire.
Welcome back to the Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal. We are in the cycle portion, a distance of 40 kilometers. And we're looking now at Mark Bates, who is in second position. Ken Glah is the leader.
And Mark Bates, by the way, is a phenomenal runner. He's on the cross-country team for Queen's University, and he's an excellent collegiate swimmer as well. Now, cycling is something he only took up a couple of years ago and has really come through. Interesting to see that he can hold on to a man the caliber of Ken Glah. not only hold on, but he appears to be making inroads into that lead that Ken has. Eric Millamacki now in 4th place because Nick Taylor has taken 3rd spot. Nick Taylor, in fact, was born in England, but he's been racing a lot down in Texas. Makes his home in Austin at this time, and a lot of the Ontarian triathletes, in fact, go down to train with him in the winter time. So Mark Bates, doing very, very well, is really flying. We have him presently going at around 26 miles an hour on the flat, and there's quite a bit of flat on this course. The conditions, there's some rough road out there. There's some railway crossings, a couple of manholes, I understood, but we know that the Montreal police are doing a fine job in monitoring. They've cut off all traffic to the road, so the athletes are really going to be pleased with that. Going through, there's David Kirk on the left, and I understand Ken Glar now is losing a little more ground already to Mark Bates, who's just about to assume the lead. But behind him, we have a gap of about 30 to 40 seconds to that second pack. Remember, the distance they're covering, just under 25 miles. So the first athlete should be around 58 minutes for this sort of course.
And that large building in the foreground there, Maison Radio Canada, the home of CBC in Montreal. There's Simon Cassidy.
Simon Cassidy out of Vancouver. This man was on Canada's national team at the Worlds. He placed 17th there. He was the first Canadian finisher last year in the Vancouver race as well. He was also first in Toronto. Second this year, the BC Championships. He can certainly do well. He wants to get back on Canada's national team. He was, in fact, BC Triathlete of the Year last year, so we expect big things from Simon. He'll be pleased to hang in there, get in that top 6 and make that team. But there's a lot of people vying for position out there. I think that's Dave Kirk on the outside. That looks like Kenny Glar, is it?
It is indeed Ken Glar, who at one point was leading the cycling portion of the 1990 Canadian Triathlon competition.
Making one of the turns now off the highway, a big group there. You notice they're not drafting. Remember what drafting is about. It means they've got to maintain a position behind of at least 2 bike lengths. That's Simon Cassidy going through. They've got to be 3 feet either side of another cyclist and have 15 seconds in which to make the pass. Now, one lady who is hoping to make a pass soon will be Carol Montgomery, presently in 2nd place. But we have her presently at about 1:45 back of our leader, Joanne Ritchie.
Carol Montgomery with the yellow disc rear wheel, and she has been very steady in the cycling portion of this event. But the leader is Joanne Ritchie, and as Steve King pointed out, we've got Carol about 1.5 minutes behind. Certainly not an insurmountable time when you think of the distance involved in this triathlon, a 1.5K swim, 40K cycle, and a 10K run. Lots of the area in which to make up time.
And Gal Lawrence is managing to hold on presently to that 3rd position. We have to remember, Carol Montgomery, in fact, is just recovering from a kidney problem. She took the week off beforehand, so she just wants to get on the team because she's buying everything towards that World Championship. But it is Mark Bates, the man who is now leading. What a bike ride he is having. This is quite phenomenal for him to come through the field like that on the bike slip. He won Guelph Triathlon earlier this year. He was 10th in Niagara, and we saw him in BC when he came 7th there to the winner, Mike Peake. So he'll be delighted to come off the bike in 1st position here. He's from Kingston, Ontario. He's also a great biathlete, so not only can he bike, but he can certainly run.
Mark Bates making his way into the transition area from the cycle portion to the run. You can see he's undoing his cycling shoes. He will try and get those off as quickly as he can and into his running shoes. He has to stop at the gate there, this transition area located on Ile Notre-Dame in Montreal. He parks his bike. He's already got his cycling shoes off. Now he slips into his running shoes. Again, it's very important to make up as much time as you can here, not to tardy in any way, shape, or form, and get onto the run, which Mark Bates, our leader, has done very well. A good transition area for Mark Bates of Kingston, Ontario.
And not only a good transition, we have his time for the bike at 57.24. That is averaging 26 miles an hour. Coming in right now in 2nd place is Ken Glar. Now we'll get his bike slip, and look at that, a pack of 5 or 6 other riders right behind him. Amongst those riders, I can see Dave Kirk there, Simon Cassidy just coming through as well. So these are people we certainly expect to be out there. Another man doing very well, Paul Granger, last year's winner in the World Police and Fire Games Championship Triathlon. That was held in Vancouver. He went to Avignon last year, wasn't on the national team, but he was on the national team for age groupers, and he in fact won that category from Eben Jones of the US. So he's a man who also can get on the national team. Certainly he'd like to do that. There's Eric Millamacki, the leading junior at present, in 6th place. Joanne Ritchie now coming off the bike, and we'll get to see what her split is and see just how far ahead of Carol Montgomery she is. Now, I've got a clock there at 63 minutes. That's averaging 23.4 miles an hour as she goes into transition. We've got to remember this lady had a couple of years off of racing when she had her daughter Gillian in July of last year. Carol Montgomery now coming in. I have her there as she's coming through about a minute 25 behind at that point coming into transition. Carol can make that sort of a time up on the run, but Joanne has really been improving her running lately. We saw her compete in a 10K recently. She did around 37 minutes, coming second overall. There is Carol Montgomery just dismounting. Other rule I need to mention here, they're not allowed to undo their helmets until they rack the bikes. That's another safety violation.
That is an excellent rule. In this event, you have to wear a helmet during the cycle portion of the competition. I think that's great.
Well, you saw what happened earlier. Dave Smith went down. We understand there's been another crash out there as well. We'll get to hopefully find out more about that. Dave Smith, I understand, is okay. He's in hospital under observation. But again, if he wasn't wearing a helmet, who knows what would have happened. Gail Lawrence coming into 3rd place off the bike. She'll be happy with that. Running is probably the worst of her 3 disciplines, so she'll be pleased if she can hold on to 3rd. So the lady gunning out there in 2nd place, Carol Montgomery, the lady who won in China earlier this year. A tremendous crowd there. The 2nd year they've held a triathlon in Beijing. The 1st year about 50 triathletes and 2 million spectators. I want to say I'm really pleased to see the numbers who have turned out here in Montreal to watch this national championship. A real good turnout, not only of spectators, but we've got about 900 triathletes in the field today.
This is Gail Lawrence in the transition area from the cycle portion of the competition. She is putting on her running shoes and will make her way off Ile Notre Dame along with Carol Montgomery as they race through the Olympic Park. When we return, more of the run from the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal.
North America's fastest are chasing their dreams. Al Unser Jr. is chasing immortality in the Championship Auto Racing Team Series for IndyCar. These magnificent machines have blown the glory all season long. And now the action rolls to the Mid-Ohio Indy, where Unser will stock his 5th straight trip to Victory Road. And Sports Weekend will bring you the Pulse Quick Inning action in 1 week.
Mazda is going all out to have another record-breaking year. Mazda dealers are ready to make the deals that break the record. They are going to be saying yes more than ever before. Yes on Miata. Yes on MPV. Yes on every truck. Yes on every Mazda vehicle.
And they're all covered by one of the best full-line warranties in the business?
Yes.
So I'd better see my Mazda dealer right now.
Network, the album. The concert of the decade is now the album of a lifetime. With the greatest names in British rock, including Elton John, Eric Clapton, Dire Straits, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Paul McCartney, and more. More than 2 hours of music, all digitally recorded from this unique event on one incredible collection. Network, live the experience on 2 cassettes or 2 compact discs. In stores now.
East is east, and west is something entirely different. New West, the new skin scent for men by Aramis. Available at Eaton's.
Welcome back to the final portion of the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal as we look at our race leader, Mark Bates, out on the run and going very well, but he is being pursued by about 3 or 4 other athletes, so by no means has Mark Bates got the run sewed up.
No, not indeed. There may be a big gap between 3rd and 4th places at this time, but those 2 guys right behind him are phenomenal runners. But so is Mark, too. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they come up to his shoulders. certainly Ken Glass familiar with coming back on the run portion. We saw him do that in Vancouver last year when there were 3 guys chasing down Mike Pick, and he was the one who got away from them all with that dip finish at the end, 2 seconds up. But Mark Bates, I would expect him to be able to hang on at least to that 3rd place. I don't think anyone can catch these 3 now. But Simon Cassidy appears to now make some headway. He's moving away from Ken Glass, and Simon is a man certainly who wants to be Canada's #1. That's his goal, as well as to be one of the very best in the world. He has proved that he can do that. He's been the first Canadian finisher at a number of major races.
So running 1, 2, 3 right now is Mark Bates, Simon Cassidy, and Ken Glass.
Now, Simon Cassidy also was the man who was 2nd in the BC Championships to Frank Clark. Now, Frank Clark, I understand, has had some problems in the swim, so he doesn't look as though he's in contention today, which is a bit of a shame, but Simon going very well out there, and look at the way he's focused. Now, this will be interesting. Now, does he just go and really go hard as he comes up to the shoulders of Mark Bates, or does he stay with him for a while and try and pump it at the end? We'll wait and see what happens as Ken Glass looking them down too. He wants to get up there without 2 leaders. But it's interesting to see Ontario versus BC. This is what's happening throughout the race. The provincial bodies of both these two, they want to win the national championships as well as have the individual winners. So Simon Cassidy is presently our leader. Look at that, he's taken him now. Is he going to open up a gap quickly or what? It'll be interesting to see with Mark there. Very friendly tap as he gave him as he went past. So these guys have raced head-to-head on numerous occasions as well. There is a roller pace circuit throughout Canada, and these guys have entered most of those races.
Simon Cassidy, a 22-year-old from Vancouver, a recent graduate of the University of British Columbia with a BA in International Relations. He's been competing in the sport for 8 years, so he certainly has lots of experience. Now, it looks as if Ken Glass has just passed Mark Bates.
Indeed, not surprised, but I hope Mark Bates isn't falling backwards because of that. Ken Glass is a very, very fine short distance and long distance runner. We have to remember Ken has placed 3rd and 4th before in the Hawaiian Ironman. He's also placed 2nd recently in New Zealand, as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to see him later on in Ironman Canada. So Ken Glass now in 2nd place, but remember he is American. So the 2 Canadians out front. We've got Simon Cassidy looking back there to check what he's opened up. This is a long, long stretch towards that finish line.
And we should point out that in an Ironman competition, the run is a full marathon, 26 miles. In this competition, it's 10K.
Or 6.2 miles, absolutely. And we can expect the lead runners to probably average around 5:15 to 5:20 per mile. And Carol Montgomery also doing very well out there, and she is making inroads. Now, she will also be going probably around 5:40 to 5:50 per mile for the distance. We've seen her do 33 before in an open 10K race. For triathlon, she averages between 35 and 36.5 minutes for the 10K distance. But she's got to gun down Joanne Ritchie if she wants to become the Canada's national champion, and that's hard work indeed, because Joanne would like to hang on to that, I'm sure.
And remember, Carol has already finished a 1.5K swim, a 40K cycle. She is into the 10K run, and she doesn't even look as if she's breathing hard. She's going very well.
But these guys are breathing hard indeed as they try and run down Simon Cassidy, who is looking very comfortable himself. We had a somewhat deceptive look there, but he's got about 60 meters up, I believe, on Ken Glass in 2nd place, and Mark Bates is holding that 3rd position. Now we get a better camera angle as Simon Cassidy comes towards that finish line, and he is going to be the 1990 Canadian national champion. Look at that. He is delighted with this one. His time, it looks as though it's going to be around a 1:53. That's an excellent time for an Olympic distance triathlon. Coming down that home stretch now, just a few meters left in it. Look at the joy on Simon Cassidy's face.
Simon Cassidy raising that right arm. He knows he's got this wrapped up. Simon Cassidy wins the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championship. An excellent race for him. Ken Glass, the American, comes in to take 2nd place in these championships. Of course, Ken Glass not eligible for the Canadian team at the World Championships in Orlando, but you know that Simon Cassidy will be a member of what I'm sure will be a very strong Canadian team. A good race from Mark Bates of Kingston, Ontario. Mark Bates coming in to take 3rd place.
And a tremendous performance there. The win at 1:52.58 for Simon, and Mark there about 32 seconds back of the pace.
The final lap when we return to Montreal and the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championship.
Next week on Sports Weekend, Al Unser Jr.'s Dream Drive rolls into the heartland, the Mid-Ohio Indy. From Japan, the thrill of the chase, where dreams can live or die on the turn of a wheel. the World Road Cycling Championship. And the Grand Prix track season kicks into overdrive at Athens for the season's final. Ayrton Senna, cool, ready. Marvelous last time out in Monza, preparing to do battle again in the Grand Prix of Portugal. All coming up in 1 week on Sports Weekend.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
Over the sound of rain, we hear the roar of Pontiac excitement. It is a GM 16-valve 4 that survived 400 hours at full throttle without a whimper. And this world-class 6 is taken to the limit night after night, improving Pontiac endurance. GM engines are rated more dependable than all the other domestic makers. So take a closer look at Pontiac. With 77 models redesigned and engineered, GM is putting quality on the road.
A high-speed Canon fax can scan and transmit in less than, because in business, time is money.
Katie, time for lunch. Mommy.
Metro Police Child Hotline. Canon fax with UHQ imaging for crisp, clear picture quality.
She's okay. She's gonna be all right.
Because every little detail means so much.
The land of the rising sun is the setting. Olympic glory is the prize. Decision time draws nearer, and Toronto's hopes are on needles. While Toronto is on pin, live the crowning of a new Canadian bowling queen. Still to come on Sports Weekend.
You're looking at Carol Montgomery, the current leader in the women's elite division. She has just looked over her shoulder to see how much of a lead she has as she comes down to the final few meters in the 10K run.
And I must say, it's not unexpected that Carol would be our leader, but it's this lady, Joanne Ritchie, who's been the surprise of the year, because she last raced in 1988 seriously at the Kelowna World Championships and came second there to Erin Baker, the world's #1 ranked female. And this lady was second to Erin Baker in the Commonwealth Games. So Carol Montgomery once again coming through on the big one. But Joanne Ritchie there in second place. She looks to be only about 50 meters back at this point as they are approaching that final kilometer towards that finish line. I want to mention also, we've heard an update on the ladies. In third place presently is Kendall Morrison. Now, she was just about in 20th position coming out of the swim. She was about 6th coming out on the bike, but she's having a phenomenal run, and we understand she is presently in third place. So we hope to get a look at her later on, but also Sylviane Pontus is hanging in there. So remember, BC athletes want to make that team. So presently in the women's race, they are 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Carol Montgomery with that very relaxed running style. She's going very, very well now. She knows that she only has a few meters to go, and she is just picking up the pace a little over the second-place runner, Joanne Ritchie. She wants to make sure that she has this one up. And you were talking about Kendall Morrison. There she is, and you can see Pontos in back of her.
That's right, Kendall Morrison. What a year she is having. This is the lady who was 9th in the World Championships in Avignon last year. She also won in Milton last year, and this year she placed 4th in Whistler to Sylviane Pontus, by the way. There was just 2 seconds in it between Pontus and Joanne Ritchie. So Kendall Morrison coming through after last weekend's incredible victory in Vancouver. This was the lady who couldn't race in Vancouver, but today she's coming in to be crowned the 1990 Women's Canadian National Champion. It is Carol Montgomery out of North Vancouver.
Carol Montgomery now coming down the victory lane as she receives the applause of the fans. Carol Montgomery wins the Women's Elite Division of the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships, and Joanne Ritchie, who had such an outstanding cycle portion of this event, but faltered on the run, takes second place. Her time
18 seconds behind the winner, Carol Montgomery, who finished with a time of 2:03.12. And coming in to take third place, and her time should be just over 2:05, is Kendall Morrison.
And what a great race for these BC athletes. I know the national coach, Pat Kelly, out of Victoria, will be delighted with this. It's a 1-2-3 so far, and Sylviane Pantus is going to hold on to that fourth place.
Let's take a look at the final standings again for the men. Mark Bates takes third, Kenny Gloss second, and Simon Cassidy of Vancouver the winner.
Well, I'm very pleased with it, you know, especially with the lack of wetsuits today. The swim was probably a little bit slower, but it was a very tough race, a lot of good guys up there, and I'm happy that I won.
The difference for Simon Cassidy in this one was a very, very strong run. Here you see him passing Mark Bates.
Took a bit of work to catch Mark, and I really had to work hard to hold up Kenny Gloss, and I was able to put in a strong run.
The final standings for the women, Kendall Morrison in third, Joanne Ritchie takes second, but the winner of the 1990 race, Carol Montgomery.
All week I've been really resting. I've hardly done any training, so I guess I rested correctly and ate the right kind of foods and seemed to come together today. And I mean, this course is basically my kind of course with a flat run and long stretches where you can see people ahead of you, so I guess it just was my day.
It may not have been her day in the swim and the cycle portion of this competition, but she was outstanding when it came to the run.
I didn't think I'd catch a minute 25 on her, but I just did it. I just felt strong and went for it.
Just ahead for Carol Montgomery, the all-important World Championship in Orlando, Florida.
Last year I was 7th, so this year I hope to do better than that. And I think our main goal, too, is we got a strong Canadian team, and it'd be great to be the top team. We were second last year, the women, and it would be nice to be first this year.
And we're expecting big things from that Canadian team at the World Championships in Orlando, Florida, and we will have that for you, exclusive coverage on CBC's Sports Weekend. And now for Steve King, I'm Steve Armitage saying so long from the 1990 Canadian Triathlon Championships in Montreal.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Steve. Congratulations to Simon Cassidy and Carol Montgomery on their victories there. The national championships in Montreal, as Steve says, will also bring you the World Championships as the best round the globe gather in Orlando, Florida for the World Championships. That'll air September the 29th on CBC's Sports Weekend. Well, here at Control, we continue to follow baseball developments. The pennant races are ongoing right now, and there's a key American League East encounter at Sky Dome in Toronto. The Blue Jays and Baltimore Orioles. 2 home runs in the 5th inning for the Orioles from Billy Ripken and then Cal Ripken Jr., putting the Orioles on top of Toronto. Then with George Bell on in the 7th inning, Toronto appears to have a rally started, but the Ripkens combined to turn the double play. As Billy feeds to Cal Ripken, and he drives it over to first base to end the inning for Toronto. It's now 2-1, Baltimore clinging to that 1-run lead in the 8th inning at Sky Dome in TO. The other game on this afternoon that's of significance features the NL East Division race. The New York Mets are a game and a half behind Pittsburgh, but they're leading 4-1. Frank Viola looking for his 17th win on the year, leading by 3 in that ball game. The Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, are at the Big O in Montreal, where tonight they'll tangle at 7:50 Eastern Time. Zane Smith goes for the Bucks against Chris Nabolts for the Montreal Expos. Well, in golf at Glen Abbey in Oakville, it's the Canadian Open. Dave Barr started on Thursday with a 66 and was 1 shot off the lead. He had a 72 in second round action, and today is at 5 under par. He's 4 shots off the lead. The man who is leading is Buddy Gardner, and the reason he has a commanding lead now of 2 shots is this effort on the 18th and final hole for Gardner this afternoon. An eagle putt. And just enough to fall for Buddy Gardner. So with that 2-shot improvement over par on 1 hole, he now is at 9 under par and leads Bobby Watkins, who is at 7 under, as they say, Canada's Dave Barr, the leading Canadian, at 5 under par. Well, these are tense times in Tokyo. The IOC is meeting to determine who will host the 1996 Summer Olympics. And for the complete story, let's go now to Brian Williams.
The results of the voting, ladies and gentlemen, for Montreal, 41 votes, Moscow, 28 votes, and 1 blank vote.